studio microphone. What if the institution meant to protect Africa was actually its biggest failure? What if a president's tear-filled outburst shattered the silence of an entire continent? Ibrahim Traoré just did what no African leader has dared to do on camera. This is not just a speech, it's a revolution. And it just went viral. When President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso stood before a crowd of reporters during what was expected to be a routine security briefing, no one predicted what would come next. But in a matter of minutes, a leader known for his quiet strength became the voice of a generation tired of silence, neglect, and betrayal. With cameras rolling, he took a deep breath, clenched his jaw, and dropped a political bombshell: the African Union is useless. The room froze. His advisors glanced nervously. Reporters stopped typing. He wasn't finished. His voice rose with emotion as he questioned the AU's absence during Africa's darkest hours. What is the African Union doing for us? Where are they when our people are being slaughtered? When our villages are falling? When our sovereignty is threatened? Then came the word that would echo across the continent: nothing. It wasn't just frustration, it was heartbreak. Traoré leaned forward, voice trembling: "We are alone." These words didn't come from a place of politics. They came from pain. From war-torn provinces, burning villages, and abandoned promises. And that's what made this moment unlike any other. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't strategic. It was real. Burkina Faso has been through waves of insurgency, economic sabotage, and foreign interference. Since Traoré took power in 2022 through a military transition, his government expelled French troops, launched massive reforms, and tried to rebuild a broken nation, with barely any support. And through it all, the African Union, created to protect and unify African states, remained silent. No deployments. No serious aid. Just statements. Generic, forgettable statements. So when Traoré finally spoke out, he didn't just criticize the AU, he exposed it. Exposed its absence. Its irrelevance. Its quiet complicity. This wasn't a president speaking for one country. It was a cry from an entire continent. One that's tired of watching its people bleed while its institutions look the other way. His outburst went viral because it wasn't just bold, it was necessary. It shattered the illusion that Africa's unity was intact. It revealed that the African Union, once built to be Africa's shield, may now be nothing more than a logo. But this is just the beginning. In the next part, we'll uncover exactly why the AU has failed, and how its silence has become the loudest betrayal of all. Stay tuned. President Ibrahim Traoré's viral outburst didn't just break headlines, it broke illusions. But to understand why his words struck such a deep nerve, we have to look at what the African Union was created to be, and what it has actually become. Launched in 2002 to replace the Organization of African Unity, the African Union was built on promises, unity, peace, and African-led development. It was supposed to be Africa's shield, against colonial interference, foreign exploitation, and internal instability. But in the 2 decades since, those promises have withered into empty slogans. When Libya plunged into chaos in 2011, it wasn't the AU that led peace efforts. NATO took control, Western powers dictated terms, and the AU watched from the sidelines. When Sudan erupted into civil war in 2023, AU mediations came too late and too weak. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, where militias loot minerals and terrorize civilians, the AU did little more than issue a press release. These aren't isolated failures. They form a pattern of absence. While African civilians bleed, starve, and flee, the AU responds with 3 tools: a statement, a committee, or silence. And yet, when African governments dare to act outside Western norms, when Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, or Niger take bold, military-backed steps to regain control, the AU suddenly wakes up. It suspends memberships, labels governments illegitimate, and applies pressure. But where was that urgency when bombs were falling? Where was that unity when economies collapsed under foreign debt? This hypocrisy is what Traoré called out. A union that defends rules but not people. That values order more than justice. That fear's upsetting donors more than failing Africans. Over 60% of the AU's budget comes from outside the continent, from the EU, the US, and UN agencies. That money comes with strings attached. Political red lines. Silent deals. So when France keeps its grip on West African currency, or when US troops expand operations in the Sahel, the AU treads carefully. It criticizes quietly, if at all. But when African states reject that control, when they expel foreign forces, question colonial currencies, or demand autonomy, the AU reacts harshly. This funding dependency has created an invisible leash. The AU may wear African colors, but it speaks with a foreign accent. Traoré's speech wasn't just rebellion, it was truth. And behind that truth is an even deeper fracture. The AU has become a fortress of procedure. Its summits are filled with aging bureaucrats and scripted speeches. Its agendas are rehearsed. Its debates are slow. Meanwhile, on the ground, Africa faces modern warfare, digital propaganda, economic blackmail, and mass displacement. The people suffer in real time, but the AU moves like it's still in the 1990s. Traoré wasn't demanding miracles. He was demanding presence. Courage. Leadership. What once was imagined as Africa's powerhouse now feels like a stage for politeness, disconnected from the fire outside. And that fire is spreading. Markets in Bamako. Classrooms in Niamey. Camps in Ouagadougou. Everywhere, ordinary Africans are starting to ask the same question: if the AU won't protect us, who will? In Part 3, we'll follow that question to its answer, and discover how a new force is rising from the Sahel to rewrite Africa's future. Don't miss it. From the heart of the Sahel, something new is taking shape, a defiant wave rising where institutions have failed, where promises have turned into ashes. The silence of the African Union created a vacuum, and now that vacuum is being filled by a force the old guard never saw coming. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, three nations battered by insurgencies, foreign interference, and economic collapse, have banded together to form the Alliance of Sahel States, or AES. But this isn't just a military coalition. It's a declaration of a new African era. These countries have rejected both ECOWAS and AU authority, expelled foreign troops, and cut ties with colonial monetary systems. They're doing what was once unthinkable, reclaiming sovereignty without permission. And what makes this movement different is not how these leaders came to power, it's what they're fighting for. Unlike past military regimes obsessed with control and wealth, these new governments are pursuing ideological independence. They're focused on food sovereignty, local industry, national defense, and diplomatic freedom. They're refusing to be pawns. They're demanding to be players. While the African Union hosts summits in air-conditioned halls, the AES is digging trenches, building farms, and forging new alliances with powers like Russia, Turkey, and China. It's a shift from theory to action, from diplomacy to defense. And at the center of this shift stands Ibrahim Traoré, not just as a head of state, but as a symbol of raw, unfiltered resistance. His speeches are not written for donors. They are spoken to farmers, youth, mothers, and soldiers. His words are not polished, they are burning. And the people hear him. In Burkina Faso, his image appears on walls, his rallies draw crowds in the thousands, and his message echoes through markets and mosques. This isn't just politics, it's a generational uprising. For too long, young Africans have been told to wait, to vote, to believe in reforms that never come. Now, they are demanding protection, dignity, and control. And they're not looking to the AU, they're looking to each other. Across West Africa, from refugee camps to universities, people are asking the same question: if our leaders can't defend us, then who will? The AES isn't perfect. It's fragile, young, and surrounded by enemies. But it is moving. It is acting. It is fighting. And it is doing what the African Union has failed to do for decades: stand up. Not just against foreign domination, but against internal decay. Against silence. Against betrayal. This rising movement doesn't wear suits. It wears scars. It doesn't speak in diplomatic language, it speaks in survival. And as the AU clings to outdated norms, this new force is reshaping the very meaning of legitimacy in Africa. Not legitimacy through elections that are rigged and bought, but through protection, service, and sacrifice. In classrooms, on radio waves, and on the streets, this idea is spreading. The idea that Africa doesn't need permission to rise. It just needs the courage to act. And now, with the old order trembling and the new one marching forward, the question isn't whether change is coming. The question is whether anyone can stop it. As the alliance of Sahel states moves forward with fearless determination, the African Union remains frozen in time, a relic of an era that no longer speaks to the urgency of now. The consequences of that paralysis are not theoretical, they are bleeding across Africa in real time. In Burkina Faso, entire provinces have become ungovernable. Insurgent groups torch villages overnight, teachers abandon schools, markets collapse, and families flee with nothing but fear in their hands. And through it all, the African Union, despite having a Peace and Security Council, has sent no meaningful peacekeeping force, no emergency aid, no rapid intervention. It speaks of sovereignty, but delivers no shield. In Sudan, where one of the decade's most brutal humanitarian disasters is unfolding, rival military factions are tearing the country apart, leaving tens of thousands dead and millions displaced. Whole neighborhoods in Khartoum lie in ruins. The health system has collapsed. The African Union? It held a summit. But no help came. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, militias backed by foreign interests continue to commit crimes so vile they defy description: mass rapes, child soldier recruitment, and the industrial-scale theft of precious minerals. Cobalt, coltan, gold, all ripped from African soil to power foreign economies. And yet, the AU hasn't even managed to deploy a united regional force to push these groups back. This isn't failure, it's abandonment. Mozambique, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Cameroon, violence persists under different names, but always with the same result: local exhaustion, regional isolation, and continental silence. Every time an African country cries out, not in words but in blood, the AU responds with a press release, or nothing at all. This is the context behind Traoré's pain. He's not just a man leading through crisis. He's a witness to betrayal. A betrayal that repeats itself across borders, across cultures, across generations. The African Union was created to unite and defend, but it now stands as a bystander to the continent's slow destruction. And it's not just in military terms. Economically, Africa is being strangled. Inflation rises while foreign lenders push austerity. Natural resources are extracted while communities are left in toxic poverty. As African nations call for debt reform, currency independence, and industrial investment, the AU offers little more than slogans and ceremonial panels. Then there's the climate catastrophe. Droughts in the Sahel, cyclones in the south, rising sea levels along the coasts. Africa is being ravaged by climate change. But where is the AU's emergency task force? Where is its coordinated disaster relief, its infrastructure for resilience? Missing. Always missing. For the mothers who bury children from hunger, for the students who walk past rebel checkpoints just to attend school, for the communities rebuilding after every attack, the African Union is not an idea. It is an absence. And that absence has become unbearable. Traoré's voice, cracked with rage and sorrow, became the voice of millions who feel forgotten in their own homeland. The betrayal isn't just political, it is personal. It lives in every empty hospital, every broken road, every bullet hole where a future should have been. And now, as young leaders rise not to ask permission but to take control, the question is no longer whether the AU has failed, it is whether it even matters anymore. Africa now stands at a crossroads more dangerous and more promising than ever before. President Ibrahim Traoré's emotional words did not just mark a breaking point, they marked a turning point. This is no longer about one leader or one institution. It's about the future architecture of African power itself. The African Union was supposed to be the house that shelters the continent, but when the roof caves in and no one rushes to fix it, the people begin to build elsewhere. That's exactly what is happening. A new African awakening is rising from the Sahel and spreading across the continent, and now, three competing visions are pulling Africa in different directions. The first path is reform from within. It sees the AU's crisis not as terminal but structural. Supporters of this view believe that with enough courage, the AU can still be saved. It would require radical steps, cutting bureaucratic waste, ending dependency on foreign donors, creating a real African emergency response force that deploys in days, not years. It means decentralizing power, giving local regions the tools to act fast, and elevating the Pan-African Parliament from a symbolic stage to a decision-making body with teeth. But reform needs brave leadership. The same people who allowed the AU to decay cannot be trusted to resurrect it. So even if reform is ideal, many wonder if it's still realistic. The second path is replacement, building something new outside the AU. The Alliance of Sahel States is already doing this. What began as a regional security pact is slowly becoming a prototype for a new kind of continental order. An order that doesn't rely on Western donors, that refuses neo-colonial interference, and that puts African dignity and defense above all else. There are whispers of expanding AES into a broader African Sovereignty Council, one that includes revolutionary governments, grassroots movements, independent intellectuals, and new strategic allies like Russia, China, Turkey, or Brazil. A structure that can trade, protect, and build without asking permission from Brussels or Washington. It's bold, but risky. Competing continental institutions could fracture Africa further if not carefully guided. But for many, it's better than waiting for help that never comes. Then there's the third and most radical path, the revolution hinted at by Traoré's tearful plea. This is not about reforming a system or replacing it. It's about burning it down and starting from soil. A vision where African unity isn't decided in conference rooms but forged in classrooms, battlefields, farms, studios, and digital platforms. Where power comes not from top-down bureaucracy, but from bottom-up resistance. This revolution doesn't wear suits, it wears overalls. It doesn't pass resolutions, it plants seeds. It teaches, protects, creates, heals, and defends. It speaks in every African language. It beats like every African drum. It's not about sovereignty on paper, it's about consciousness in practice. And that consciousness is already awakening. Young people no longer believe the old promises. They see the smoke rising, the soil drying, the systems failing. And they are choosing to act. Whether it's building new institutions, rewriting curricula, organizing local resistance, or simply refusing to wait, they are creating a new Africa with their own hands. So the question is no longer what should be done with the African Union. The question is what kind of Africa we dare to imagine without it. Will we cling to broken structures out of habit, or will we rise, fractured, furious, and free, to shape something wild, raw, and real? The choice is no longer in Addis Ababa. It is in the streets, in the voices, in the hearts of every African ready to say enough. The revolution has already begun. And this time, it won't ask for permission.